Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Coding and Philosophy podcast. I'm Juho.
And I'm Tri Anh.
Yes, and we just arrived from Tri's workplace in Framery. They had a nice event. They fed me. They gave me food. It was a nice time. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And then, we arrived here in Proakatemia. And, today I was thinking of discussing, there has been changes within the school of Proakatemia.
All right.
And they involve the school. And I think
A major refactor.
a major refactoring.
Or it's not even refactor, because refactor is having the same functionality. It's just a different way of expression. This is a complete renovation.
This is a complete
Architecture.
architectural overhaul.
Overall,
Like
all right.
moving from a monolithic system into a microservice, basically.
Okay.
Something like that. And so what's happening in Proakatemia is that right now it's a big community, a single community, and it's going to be divided into 4 houses, basically. And each house is going to have their own 4th year, 3rd year, 2nd year, and 1st year students. And I was a part of a meeting where I heard about this. This was organized by the teachers of the Proakatemia, and I actually became quite upset in the meeting because first I was excited to hear about refactoring, or not refactoring, the overhaul. And then I felt that the underlying issues which Proakatemia has as an entity weren't being addressed. And what I feel are the underlying issues is the fact there's no clear hierarchical structure within the school. There's no principal, first of all. There's no, even though there's no Albus Dumbledore.
There's no Dumbledore in here.
Yeah. So
How's the Dumbledore share with the entire TAMK as a system?
Yeah.
Because this is just Proakatemia, to my understanding. It's just a branch that major in international business and leadership and entrepreneurism. So the principal share with the entire TAMK system.
Yeah, but the thing is that there is a person who is Proakatemia is just one department, there is a person who is charge of
a degree program.
Yeah, degree.
A head of degree program.
Exactly. But there's no, let's say, the person who's head of the degree program, Proakatemia isn't the main priority. There's no, they aren't really involved in the decisions which are made here in the school. So there isn't really a single principle for Proakatemia, And I'm definitely a proponent of the traditional power hierarchy, which you have in Framery.
It's not even traditional. It just cannot be. It is. It is what it is. It's how nature works.
That's the thing. It
is what it is.
Yeah.
Because there's no way around it to replace the function of a hierarchy in not only in nature as a whole, but in how organisms structure and behave themselves with regards to that hierarchy.
And I feel that this basic fact is not being addressed. It's the way it has always been, and it feels. How could you not acknowledge it? I have my own theories on why people wouldn't want to acknowledge this, that we live in a hierarchy. And one of them is that, let's say you do acknowledge it, that makes that it's kind of terrifying, because then you have to find, figure out your own place in the hierarchy. And if you're really low in the hierarchy, then it's kind of like you stumble upon a knowledge which is going to be terrifying to find. So I think people like to kind of feed themselves lies that, there isn't really a hierarchy. There isn't really a hierarchical structure, because the knowledge is painful.
What's the other hypothesis?
Well, the other hypothesis is that if you tell people that there isn't such a thing, or you're basically stripping them of power, right? Or like, let's say in Proakatemia, for example, if there is no single, like if you're trying to make the whole organizational structure flat as possible, then you're not giving anyone power. Therefore, no one has power over you, and your place in the hierarchy, it's gonna be higher by definition, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
There's no hierarchy. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but if you just don't,
It's a null state.
yeah,
It's literally a null state.
if you refuse to acknowledge power that other people have, then or if you try to strip it away from people, then you're naturally kind of advancing in the hierarchy. Does it make sense?
No. There's nothing in the first place, so how do you advance to it?
Well, if you don't acknowledge it, that's what I mean.
When you describe there are teachers in your school,
Mm-hmm.
and then I remember you have business leaders, the name suggests himself that there's actually an authority figures in the organization. How does it actually play out in the situation of flat hierarchy?
Well, it's its own topic, and the fact that when we started our studies, we had to choose a business leader and a team leader, but there was no, like, we were just told you need to pick them, but there was no idea of what that actually means. There was no like assigned like responsibilities that they had.
Well, perhaps that's one of the things that the team also have to decide on.
I agree that the team should have liberty to decide on these things, but there's just having absolutely no framework it's not effective, I wouldn't say.
Now, welcome to entrepreneurism.
Yeah, but that's the thing is you
When every framework should be demolished in favor of innovation.
but there is let's say this, a lot of people who apply to Proakatemia are highly creative people. Entrepreneurs are, often very highly creative. But the problem with that is that if you don't contain that and contain that with some sort of framework, some sort of structure, some sort of, what do you call them, processes, then you end up with just not being effective. You're not making decisions. You're not producing things, which I see that as a major problem in Proakatemia. And if you look at, or an example which comes to mind on the other end of the spectrum is the army, a highly efficient organization, but it's also the least creative one because, well, you can't question orders. You can't go like, hey, I think I got a better way I know you assigned a task for me, but I think I have a better way of doing it. So you're not allowed to do that. People die when you do that. But so there is an exchange, you get, like the army is a very efficient organization. If you think about the size of it and the, like, let's say the mobilization and they do missions very effectively. So there's a lot of good in that. And well, then you have Proakatemia on the other side of the spectrum where there's no rules, there's no structures, there's nothing that basically I feel they haven't been built these frameworks and these processes, and you don't have output. Yeah, that's the way I feel about the current state of the school right as of this moment.
Will you be able to voice this at least to your team and suggest implement something, some framework, and marshal the entire team towards one unidirection?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm attempting to do, and I'm part of the organizational structure, or at least one of the people who has a view to the organizational structure within Proakatemia. And although I want to implement some sort of these processes, and we'll definitely fight for that.
Wait, will your entire team belong to one group or one house?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it will.
it will.
So, yeah, it's gonna be our team, which we're gonna be second-year students, and then there will be the first-year students with us, the third, and the graduating, because it lasts for 3.5 years. So there's still people who have half a year left, so they're not really involved in the school anymore. But yeah, that's the house. And each house is gonna have a designated, this is what I like, it's there's one designated leader from each house, which cuts down the less people you have trying to make decisions, the more effective it is. So yeah, it's I like that the amount of decision, if you cut out the amount of decision makers, the better it is. The better it is. But just when my feelings on it is that even though it is a good change of making 4 houses basically to make the thing more efficient, or it makes the thing more efficient, but you're not really addressing the root of the problem in my eyes.
Well, they are assigning a house leader, and perhaps with the new house leader, they will be able to expedite the decision-making process, and those 4 house leaders will collect the decision of the individual of the team so that they can have the consensus. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, let's see what's gonna happen. It's gonna be definitely interesting.
Then usually in the current state, how does the decision-making process play out?
Well, there's I don't know how many teams. There's 16 teams, and each of them has to pick a member to represent them in this. Well, basically a jury, right? And they send their representative, and then they make decisions. But there's no person if you compare it to politics, you have the politicians, which are basically the jury head members, but there's also the people sitting kind of managing the whole the thing, right? And I don't see that role being fulfilled currently. If you're asking about
the politician, or
not the jury member or the head of the jury.
What's the role of the head of the jury?
Well, the thing is, I don't actually know. A lot of people, I have no idea what the jury does in the school or what kind of.
Then what is the role that you find is missing at Proakatemia?
Well, that's a difficult question. I still don't understand how this whole system works. There isn't a clear hierarchical structure, and it hasn't been really explained.
Backtrack a little bit. I was asking about the decision-making process, and you mentioned that there will be representative of each team.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have a representative of each team. Do they vote and the majority win?
I'm not sure how they make decisions, to be honest.
You haven't ever been elected as a representative.
Yeah.
So you don't know what happened under the hood.
I have no idea.
Then how come can you say that the decision-making process is inefficient?
I feel it's it's an instinct. Let's say it. Let's put it that way. It's an instinct. I feel frustrated that just in general while I'm here is that
What is the example when your frustration becomes so apparent for you? In what situation? In what example?
well, it's mostly due in our own cooperative, in our own team, because I haven't really been involved in the whole of like.
Please go ahead.
But
Example
just
in your cooperative.
Example, just when it comes to there's so much planning being done, and I get frustrated because there's a lot of unknowns.
A lot of unknowns.
And oftentimes it's much more important to actually make a bad decision than to not make a decision at all. And for example, what's an example that comes to mind? Well, to me, when we're deciding on the name, for example, our cooperative is known as Chaos Cooperative, or Chaos Osk. Oh, no, not the name. That's logo. For me, it was arbitrary on what kind of like we spent a lot of time trying to come up with the logo, and I feel look, just come up with something and then you can change it later. That's kind of how I feel about the name as well, in a way. Just you can come with some name. Or another one is just we've been discussing about pricing strategies for our web services.
All right.
So to me, it's really important just to have some pricing strategy, and then you roll that out, try it out. You don't need a lot of discussion about it at first. Like your improvement on it should be based on when you're trying it out in real life, when you're trying it out in the wild.
I see, iterative process.
Exactly, rather than spending time in circles discussing what about these prices, what about this price. You're not really, everything is based on assumption. Nothing is based on actual raw data. And the only way to get that raw data is you come up with some prices and then you try them out, see you analyze.
If it quote unquote hits the mark.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's.
And then modify accordingly. Yeah, very agile. That's the agile process. That's the iterative, agile methodology. Are you able to advocate that process then?
Well, that's what I try to do. It's what I always try to do is let's come up with some decision. No, come on. Well, yeah.
But it seems to me that your effort in persuading the team to follow that framework has not been playing out well, which leads to your frustration.
Well, it is a constant personal frustration, or like constant source of frustration for me personally. I feel the decisions aren't being made. Yeah, I would say you're correct on that.
Is the decision not being made caused by too many decision makers?
That's a part of it.
And also, not many members are active and engaged to give a damn about actually making the decision, which leads to someone will not ever making a vote.
Well, we don't really vote. We don't have, well, I mean, there's a billion issues, but that's
if you guys are not voting, then what's the mechanism to arrive at a decision? In my mind, it was diplomacy. Diplomacy. No, not diplomacy. Democracy. If more than half agree, then it's a yes.
okay. This is really contradictory what I'm about to say, but when we chose, for example, the business and the team leader, we just did it with just, hey, I think you're the new team leader, and then we just made it. It was a really quick decision.
And who points out you are, and who points to that?
Well, it's usually the most vocal ones in the teams. In our team.
So it's not a people's decision. People here needs to. Wow.
It's really not.
That's very inheritance and.
But it's the
royal will continue being the royal kind of situation.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But there's the thing is this. It's what I've learned. Running a cooperative is an extremely complicated process, and running this kind of organization, Proakatemia as a whole, is a really complicated process. And I'm not trying to suggest that I have all the answers. Like, hey, you should. If you just listen to me, then everything will, I know that I'm working with an incomplete deck, and even though I feel very strongly about a thing, and I feel that this is the truth. This is what I'm saying is what has to be right. But in 10 years, I might have a completely different view on it.
Can you repeat that again?
I mean that just me as a person, I realized I have an incomplete deck, meaning that if there is something which I feel very strongly about, an opinion or an idea, I might not feel this the same way 10 years from now. But as of right now, I feel it's the correct decision or the correct idea. And I don't think you should always do the things which feel correct at the time, or express the ideas which feel correct at the time and follow those.
You should
things.
express the idea that you feel correct at the time. May I invite you for another actionable item? When you have a thing you believe that is right, please attempt to, how can I pack this? Rather than trying to say what you believe is truth, trying to reason about the truth about your belief.
Reason about the truth of my belief.
Yes. So, of course, you have the belief that something is true, but then your belief may have an origin, a foundation that takes root from it. Then try to discover the truth that leads to your belief. So goes one level deeper.
I see. Yeah, definitely.
And perhaps you, with that route, maybe you're able to either manage to persuade people on board, because maybe they also found that truth to be truth, rather than having just see the assertion of the belief from your side, but they also see the deeper foundation. Or you may find that there's another alternative given that same truth.
That's good advice. I think that's where we're going to end it.
Yeah, taken from Dr. Jordan Peterson.
Okay, shout out to that guy. So, thanks, and see you on another episode.
Oh, all right. So it has already been 50 minutes.
Well, it has been 24. So we had an extra long episode this time.
All right.
So, see you guys later.
And remember,
keep on coding
and philosophizing
and thinking about things.